Perfect Fit closets. How to use a floating shelf in our catalog using the Perfect catalog in 2020 designs. For our floating shelf system, I already have a wall in place. I'm going to go into our local browser and select our catalog, PFC Canadian catalog. For all the US dealers, please click on the PFC US catalog. In our local browser, I'm going to scroll down to our parts and double click on parts. In parts, I've got panels, shelves, drawers, and floating shelves. I'm going to double click a floating shelf, and we have one item here. Manufacturing code is FSHFA, wall-mounted floating shelf. You could also refer to our floating section in our dealer portal. In our dealer portal, we have our spec sheets for our 1.5 inch or 38 millimeter floating shelves. All our floating shelves will always be 1.5 inches thick. Maximum depth is 12 inches and the shallowest is 7. So 7 to 12 inches. Width is always going to be 24 inches to 78 inches, and thickness is always going to be 1.5 inches. It comes with a hanging rail, prongs, and brackets. Installer will have to find the wooden stud. Once the wooden stud is found, install the prongs and insert your actual floating shelf system. What's fantastic about this floating shelf system is it has an adjustment screw at the bottom of every single prong, and it has a tilting feature to tilt the actual shelf up or down to ensure that it is level. To grab my floating shelf, I'm going to left-click my floating shelf. I'm going to drag it into my elevation. Once I see my magnet, I'm going to let go of my mouse. And I'm going to left-click and drop it where I'd like it to be. I can drop it against the wall, 1 inch off the wall, and so forth. Let's drag this as 1 inch to the left wall and hit enter. And I can certainly, so once it's placed, I can now go to the actual floating shelf. I'm going to right-click the shelf itself. And now I'm going to resize my width. I can manually resize the width all the way to a maximum of 78 inches, or I can use my placement zone and indicate however I'd like it to be. So for example, if I want this to be 30 inches wide, I hit 30. Now I have a 30-inch wide module. If I want to resize it again, I can certainly resize it manually. But for more accuracy, please use the placement zone in the placement area and indicate how wide you'd like it to be. I'll click on 78, make this as wide as I can. At any time, you can certainly resize it, drag it side to side, or I can right-click and click on the up and down feature and place it accordingly. I can certainly resize it another way. I can right-click on the actual wall-mounted floating shelf, click on Attributes, and in the Attributes, let's take a quick peek. I can right-click on the illustration to see a bit better. Below in the Attribute section, you'll notice that it comes with concealed brackets, the hardware, the rail for it, as well as mounting screws. In our Variables item, we can see any specifics. Let's go back to our floating shelf. In our floating shelf, if we take a look at our specifics, we have a depth of 12 inches and a width of 78 inches. We can go as short as 7 inches, and the program stops us right there. And we can go to a maximum of 12 inches. If you have any questions on how to use a floating shelf, please give us contact at support@perfectfitcanada.com.